In our relationships, we spend so much time focusing on the power of words. But what about the power of their absence? Today, we're diving deep into the psychology of the silent treatment. That heavy, suffocating quiet that can honestly feel way more painful than the loudest argument. We're going to break down what it is, why it hurts so much, and maybe, most importantly, how to respond when silence is being used as a weapon. And hey, this is not a new thing. I mean, think about this. All the way back in 1890, the philosopher and psychologist William James got it. He recognized the profound agony of being completely ignored. He just knew that being treated like you don't even exist is this unique, deeply human kind of suffering. And it's an idea that modern psychology is now proving with some really hard science. Okay, so what are we actually talking about here, from a clinical point of view? Well, it's the silent treatment, but you'll also hear it called ostracism or stonewalling. At its core, it's simply a refusal to communicate. But it's not just about not talking, right? It's a deliberate withdrawal that can be used for very, very different reasons and with very different effects. And that right there brings us to probably the most critical distinction we need to make, because there is a world of difference between someone taking a healthy break to cool down and someone using silence to punish, control, and manipulate. And trust me, understanding this difference is absolutely key. It's a totally fair question, isn't it? I mean, we're always told that stepping away from a heated argument is a sign of emotional maturity. And it absolutely can be. But it's the intention behind the silence. That's what separates a constructive pause from a destructive tactic. And here, when you put them side by side, the contrast just becomes crystal clear. A healthy timeout, that's constructive. It has a time limit, and the goal is to actually solve the problem. The silent treatment, though, it's destructive. It can go on forever, and it's all about blame and control. See, someone taking a timeout wants to re-engage, but the person using the silent treatment, they hold all the power, and they alone decide if and when you get to talk again. Just think about it for a second. A healthy pause actually comes with communication. It's a message that says, hey, you matter, this conversation matters, but I need a moment so I can come back to this in a good way. It gives you reassurance and a plan to return, which is the total opposite of just leaving someone hanging in a state of confusion and anxiety. So let's get into the nitty-gritty psychology of why someone would actually weaponize silence. What is really going on underneath when it crosses that line from a simple break into a pattern of emotional control? Okay, these are the red flags to watch for. If the silence is completely unexplained, if it's used as punishment, or if it only ends when you finally surrender, well, that's not about cooling off. It's about control. The whole point is to make you so uncomfortable that you just give in. And over time, this can actually make you doubt your own perceptions, which is a really damaging form of psychological manipulation. The impact of this is so huge that the famous relationship researcher Dr. John Gottman calls stonewalling one of his 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Seriously, these are the 4 communication styles that he found are the strongest predictors that a couple will get divorced. That's just how corrosive this behavior is to the health of a relationship. Now, to be fair, sometimes stonewalling doesn't come from a malicious place, a desire to control. It can actually be a self-protective response to what psychologists call flooding. This is a state where you're so emotionally overwhelmed that your fight or flight response just takes over. Your brain pretty much shuts down rational thought, and pulling away, withdrawing, feels like the only way to survive. But even if it's not intentional, the destructive impact on the other person, it's still the same. And this is the devastating result for the person on the receiving end. The silence forces them to turn inward, to desperately search for what they did wrong. Their internal monologue just becomes this loop of self-blame, anxiety, and desperation, making them question their own worth just to make the pain stop. The pain we're talking about here, it isn't just a metaphor. It is a real, measurable, neurobiological event. So let's shift gears to the science and see how your brain actually registers this experience. This is really the crucial point here, a discovery that has totally changed how we understand social dynamics. Being ignored, being excluded, or getting the silent treatment, it activates the exact same pain pathways in your brain as a physical injury. Your brain doesn't really make a big distinction between a broken heart and a broken bone. And we can actually see this in action. Functional MRI studies, brain scans, show that when you're being ostracized, a part of your brain called the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex lights up like a Christmas tree. This is the brain's alarm system for physical pain. So when someone says being ignored hurts, they are being literally, neurologically accurate. Psychologically, this pain comes from the fact that ostracism is a direct attack on four of our most fundamental human needs. It makes us feel like we don't belong. It absolutely crushes our self-esteem. It rips away our sense of control. And it can even make us question if our existence has any meaning. It's a profound threat to our very sense of self. So if you find yourself on the receiving end of this really damaging behavior, what can you do? How can you respond effectively? How do you break the cycle without getting sucked deeper into that toxic dynamic? All right, the first and most important step is to really get this. Their silence is about their inability to communicate, not your worth. Next, resist that urge to react immediately. Don't beg, don't plead. Instead, just pause and focus on your own well-being. When you feel ready, communicate your boundaries clearly using I statements. Something like, when you shut down, I feel hurt and anxious. And finally, please, don't go through it alone. Lean on your support system. And ultimately, I want you to remember this. Healthy relationships are built on respect and open communication. If someone is repeatedly using silence to harm you, you have every right to protect yourself. And sometimes, that might mean distancing yourself from that relationship to preserve your own mental health. At the end of the day, silence is neutral. It becomes powerful based on the intention we put behind it. It can be a space for calm reflection that leads to amazing solutions, or it can be a cold, hard wall used for punishment. The challenge for all of us then is to wield it with care, making sure it builds bridges instead of burning them down.